Hello folks, it's Tuesday morning. This weekend just gone, I've been back down to Essex, had a funeral that I wanted to go to, and while I was down there I saw family and killed a few other birds with the same stone. Yes, that's not a bad way of putting things. One of those things was to pick up the doors. Look at this. We have our stable door, which is going on this utility room. Pick that up, as well as the what essentially is the main door, but probably won't get used as the main door. There's this one here. That's the side light to go with it, and that's going in there. So they're a grey door with a grey frame. That's just a protective layer on there at the moment. Grey on the outside, white on the inside. Only thing is, since unwrapping them this morning, because I got back in, I drove overnight last night. I got back about 7:30 this morning. When I got them off the trailer, I realised that one of the thresholds down the bottom there is aluminium or silver coloured, and this one is gold coloured. That's a bit of a drag, especially as I had them made 500 miles away. Anyway, I've spoken to them and they're going to see if they can get me a different seal, so I can swap the gold one for the silver one. And my boy Tom's coming up in a week or so hopefully he can pick them up and bring them with him. So we'll get over that. The other thing, I bought a load of guttering while I was down there for the back of the barn, so that can be put on very soon. And I've also bought the extractors for the bathrooms, because that's why this bit of insulation isn't in, because there's a fan going in the ceiling up here somewhere, and I need to get the ducting in place before I can finish insulating that. So the only place I can get the duct out is right down in there. That piece of wood, that horizontal piece, black piece, is the fascias that you might recall me putting on. So I'm going to have to cut a square out of there. I bought this this rigid ducting along with the adapters that send it from that shape to round, and then you can put the flexible stuff around that. So that will get me, obviously I've not got room to put a round grill on that fascia, so I'm just going to, first of all I'm going to cut an angle on the end of this bit of ducting. That's the angle you see there, which will then sit flush on that fascia down there, and then I can fit a grill from the outside. And then I'm going to run the ducting up here. Then the adapter will be somewhere around here, and then that'll give us the freedom of being able to put the extractor anywhere we want within reason. So I've just been through and with my grinder and cut all the ends of the copper nails off. There's always copper nails sticking through from the slates. They were going to foul the ducting, and fortunately the ducting fits in there nicely in the air gap that's left when you put in the 6-inch insulation in the 9-inch gap. So that's going to sit in that gap quite nicely. So I just need to get that in connected at the bottom so that there's no steamy air coming out into the roof space. And then I can, once that's in place, I can get the rest of that insulation up. So it was a worthwhile trip. It was a lifelong friend, a man who I met when I was 3 years old, who passed away, and I went down for his funeral. He was 84, and it was good to catch up with some people. So it was a sad but a productive weekend as well. So Back to it now. I'm going to get a good run at things, get the rest of this insulation in, although I'm still being held up by these little fellas. I don't know if you'll be able to see them, but there's 3 or 4 chicks in that nest. We've got 4 nests with that going on. I'm leaving a right mess, as you can see. So that's going to hold me up a bit. What else? I left on Friday, and soon after I left I got a message to say that the rest of the insulation was being delivered, the inch thick stuff. But then there were 3 fairly major crashes on the roads around the area, and the entire place was just gridlocked. I obviously didn't get to see it, but our entire road for 7 or 8 miles was just solid. So insulation didn't arrive. I've not heard from them since, so I'm expecting it any day. I'm not in a rush for it. I've got plenty to do, but that will turn up at some point. So yeah, I'm just going to get this ducting cut and start putting that in. Get a little lever in there, prise it out hopefully. That'll be why. There's a copper nail holding a slate on that's gone right through it as well. That'll be why it's not letting go easy. Hopefully that will slide down there and just sit. Oh, look at that, that's perfect. It's so perfect. I'm going to give you a close-up. There we are. You can just actually see the back edge of the gutter in there. That'll just slide down, sit in that hole, and I'll put a grill on the outside. Job done. Can even seal it up from here as well. Very pleased with that. There we go, that's the ducting in there anyway, that first section for the first fan. You can buy clips of these, of course I forgot to do that, so I've improvised. I've got some of these old stainless steel brick ties and just bent the end over so that I could put a screw in it. Screwed that to the side there. It's just holding that in place. And then I'm going to cut the next bit of insulation, slide that in there, and that'll be that sorted. Quite happy with that. Hello folks, I'm finally getting around to putting the guttering on the back of the barn. I I'm not going to go through the whole thing again because I've already done a video on that, but I'm doing it a slightly different way this time. I'm using the laser again, the laser level, but it's, if you remember last time in the previous video when I did this, I set the laser up so that it shone on all the rafter feet, and then I could just fix the line. Well, I can't really do that out here because I'm so much higher up. I've got nothing to sit it on really, and I've got so many different levels. So what I'm doing instead is I've put the laser level there. It's on a magnetic bracket. So that's sitting on there, and then I've attached the receiver to this level. I've already done a few. I've already got one length up there. So basically I've set it so that the receiver will go like that when it's at the right height, and then I can just put a pencil mark at the top of the level, and I can do that on all of them, all the way along. So I just find the level that I want, put the spirit level. It doesn't need to be a spirit level, it can just be a stick, it doesn't really matter. Put that onto the line and then move the laser the receiver until it's in the right position to stop bleeping, you know, that solid tone. And then you do the same all the way along, get the staff, we'll call it a staff, at the right height, mark a line. Easy as that. When I get to the end where the shed is, where that roof, obviously I'm going to have to do it slightly differently because there's no room to hang a staff underneath. So I just have to think about that. But it's just another neat way of using the receiver and the laser. Just same job, different way. There we go. That's that one. I've mentioned it before, but because this is deep flow guttering, I'm not worried too much about putting a fall on it. As long as it's in level, the gutter is so deep that there's no way there's going to be so much water coming that it's not going to get away. So level is fine. There's the one downside of this laser. I don't know if there's a way around it. There is just a little blind spot on it. Maybe I'm just getting at too oblique an angle from the receiver. That's as many as I can do, I think. Gonna have to find a different way of doing it at the other end. Well, there you go, to get the general idea. I'm going to stop recording now because it's raining, and this the microphones and that on this GoPro do not like the wet. So there you go, a little bit of guttering with a laser level. Hello folks, it's Monday morning again. I got a fair bit done over the weekend, just been plodding on, getting insulation done. I had a big tidy up yesterday, cleared up loads of stuff downstairs. Always nice to work in a tidy place. A membrane arrives today, I think, the vapor barrier membrane that's got to go on over the insulation. We're down to just one swallow's nest that has got chicks in now. The others have all fledged. Sadly, a few of them, I came up one morning and found two laying on the floor dead. And then there was one left, and it fell out a couple of times. I put it back in the nest, and then I came down yesterday morning, and that one had fallen out again and was dead. And then so when I went up to remove the nest, I checked it before I removed it, put my hand in, and there was a dead chick in the nest. I think that's why the others were all trying to get out. So that's a shame. It's five swallows that didn't make it there. But it certainly wasn't for want of trying. Anyway, so the empty nests have now been removed. There's one left just up here. I don't know how many chicks are in there. I can only see one sticking its mouth out at the moment, but there might be more, I'm not sure. Anyway, so that means I can get on and finish getting these areas filled in. Just above the Velux is there, there and there. And then, and these couple, and then I've got to, that's the nest up there, you see. I wonder if we'll get a shot of the chick. I don't know whether you see that or not. Anyway, yeah, I've got to work around that. Then I've got to cut some more collars. I've got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more collars to cut. I'm sure I can find some bits of timber to do that. Once they're in, I can finish this whole section off. I think I might have miscalculated on the 6-inch insulation. I've only got two sheets left, 2 whole sheets anyway, and I don't think that's going to finish what I need. So that's what I'm on today. I'm supposed to be gathering sheep with my friend Stephen today, but the weather's just not good. It's foggy and raining, so we won't be able to get up in the hills and see anything anyway. So that's not happening. So back on the insulation for the day. I've mentioned these masks numerous times in the video, I think, depending on how I've edited it. As you know from previously, I've got a little bit behind with the videos. I might be catching up now. I've been wearing this mask so much I don't really even think about it anymore, which is exactly what you want with a mask, eh? You don't want to have to be thinking about, oh, I hate wearing masks that are uncomfortable, and this one, it just isn't. It's just all right. It's the best I've come across. And when you're doing so much work in a dusty environment, and you've got to wear one all the time, it's what you want. So this is the base camp mask, and I'll put a link in the description and a discount code. So if you're working anywhere dusty, get yourself one of these. You'll just see me with it on all the time now when I'm doing this stuff. So you can take that as this isn't a clever kind of, review just to make them look good. I really am using them all the time. So There we go. I'm onto insulating. I didn't know that was going to happen, but if anybody knows who this is playing, you get a prize.
They emerge from the trees.
But for copyright reasons, I can't let it play, which is a shame. Don't know how he decided to start singing in the first place. Must have touched it in my pocket. So that's how we just continue. Cut. Use the offcut to find the next one it'll fit in. That's something I do when I'm cutting this this insulation. Obviously when you're cutting through it with a saw, let me take this off a second. When you're cutting through this with a saw, it's quite hard to keep it absolutely bang on upright and square that way, you know. So what I tend to do is I always air so that it's slightly angled toward the back so that the proper size is at the front and it's slightly smaller at the back. That way it's easier to push in. If you go the other way and it's slightly bigger at the back than the front, then you can't get it in. You can't get it in where it needs to go. So what you need to remember is if you've cut that like that, it means that the piece that's left behind has got that angle as well, which means if you cut from that side again, the back's going to be bigger than the front. So on the next cut, I flip the board over. So I know that edge is as far out as, or slightly more out than the back side of how I've got it laying then. So I always cut it, make sure the back is slightly smaller than the front, then flip the next board, the board that's left, flip that over so that you've got that same thing happening again. And then when you make your next cut, again, make the back slightly smaller than the front. It's only a tiny amount, you don't want too much. And it takes a little bit of fiddling around. And if you get it square, great, but quite often you'll get it just off square. So you want to always make sure that if it is off square, it's smaller at the back than the front. Make sense? Yeah, just trying to explain that a little bit further. So this is the board that I've just cut. So I've cut the piece off of the right hand side of that. So the angle, I've angled it slightly from this way to this way so that this board that I've cut is smaller at the back. So now when I put a square on there, push that right to the top corner, you'll see hopefully that it's ever so slightly sticking out from the, let me try and move that around to the light, hopefully you see it a bit better. And you can see it's just very, very slightly wider at the bottom than the top. Which means if I cut this piece now, when I go to fit it, I'm going to struggle to get it in the gap. So, hard to do this with film with one hand. I'll flip it over, hold on, bear with. Flip it over. And now when I put the square on there, In this instance, it's absolutely dead flat because I can't keep it consistent all the way. But at least that means that when I cut this board now, it will fit in the gap easily. And then tighten up as it gets in, because as it gets into the point it needs to be flush, the front will be the right size, and then it will form a proper fit, friction fit. Hope that makes some sense. It's easier to do than to explain, as so many things are. So in this instance, I wanted the finish size to be 507. So what have we got? I'd say it's more like 506. But on the back, it's only 500. So that means it's 3mm different front to back on both sides. Which means when I cut this, hopefully, I'm either going to make a fool of myself or it's going to slide in just right. I've got to, what I have to do next is find the size. So I'm going to measure from the point where it meets the outside edge of the previous bit of insulation down to the bottom there, which is 800. I'll check it both sides in case there's a big difference. No, 800 is good. So this is where I need to check that I have got the bit of insulation up the right way. Yeah. So 800, mark that there and there. Draw a line. Well, I've got to cut this to match the angle of the piece in the top, which is already set on my square, my roofing square. Mark that angle. Same on the other side. And then I join those two marks up on the back as well. That gives me a good guide when I'm cutting through to make sure I haven't wandered too far from where it needs to be, and cut down the angle. Just look down and check. You can see there that for some reason I've started going off the angle. So I'll just go back up a touch and try and correct that. In fact, I can't, so I'm going to go in from the other end, finish it off that way. That's it. So now, if all this I've been talking about is true, when I put that up in that gap, it should go in easily and then tighten up. There you go. Went in very easy. In fact, if anything, it didn't tighten up quite enough. I might have just cut that one tiny bit slack. But you can see that it went in easy because it's small at the back. And then the offcut has already got the right angle on. So I'll put that in up here. Now you see it's exactly, because this has got that angle on it, I'm actually putting it in the other way round because it's the offcut, which means it's bigger at the back. That's why it won't go in. So if I was to put that in that way, it goes in great, but the angle's the wrong way because it's the offcut. So what I've got to do, I'll just look on there and I can see, yeah, I can see both sides have got an angle on them. So sorry about the camera work. So what I'll have to do is just trim that back edge off a little bit. Like that. Take a little bit off both sides. Ooh. So now that should go in and tighten up as it gets to the right point. There we go. That's better. So it's not all straightforward cutting this stuff. You have to kind of remember where you're at and what angles there are on the various bits and pieces that you've cut, which bit is an offcut. So, but that's the way to do it, and to like using that offcut the wrong way round to go in there is the most efficient way of using the boards. They're not cheap, so you've got to get every little bit out of them you can. And I'm doing pretty well. I've not got a lot of waste, so yeah, hope that gives you a bit of help if you're ever doing it.